So David, one of the results, we're in a market now where there's a lot of acquisitions, there's mergers, there's combinations, a lot going on, activity in all sectors, in all industries. One of the results that's a little less talked about publicly, but we know it for so many people, is what happens to the employees in these organizations. When a company is acquired or bought, there's inevitably a result. Employees, everything from behavior to culture to management style to short term. Like, what does it mean in the immediate 2 to 3 months afterwards? So, in my experience, and I know you have a lot of experience in this area, there could be results positive and negative. And one of the negative results is that people can sometimes feel disempowered. There's a new organization, there's a new group of leaders coming in, and all of a sudden, if you have been in an organization, in a job for a while, doing a certain role, and you may feel vulnerable, like you're going to lose everything from what you've been doing to your comfort to safety net to your standing or your status. So before we get into some of the tactical about what people can do, what's some of in your history and your experience, some of the things that you've seen happen as a result of acquisitions or sell-offs or mergers? What happens to some of the employees in the environments?
Sure. I've been involved in a couple of those acquisitions too. So I've been on the side where my company's been acquired, I've been an acquirer. So I can speak from that perspective very well. I think the biggest thing that goes on is as soon as the acquisition is made, there's like this very brief honeymoon period, right? Where the company that is acquired, the senior management team, they talk about how great it is, why it's going to be great, et cetera, et cetera. And the reason I keep saying et cetera, is because there's a lot of words, a lot of verbiage, a lot of hype around why it's going to be so great for the company that was just acquired by the leadership. And the leadership is the one that typically benefits the most. And the job is they have to propagate that in order to create an environment of all of the talent and all of the structure and all the things that will they stay during the official close. So now you roll forward close, and this is where things happen tied to your question. You realize that everything that made companies great to be acquired is not really on what everybody wants from the company that is acquiring it. They want to impose their philosophy, their culture, their style on the company that was acquired, which is typically the opposite messaging that you get from your own management team. And all of a sudden you have all these questions and no answers and no sense of direction.
Yeah, and one of the challenges to navigate, and if you've been in one of these situations, think about, I'll throw this seed out there, and as you process some of what David just said, how are you currently navigating that? How did you navigate? Did you feel like you can go and speak to a leader, to management, to your boss, and maybe you had comfort going to speak to them, but were you getting straight answers?
Right.
And, in your experience, David, and I understand where a lot, I saw this in the bar, once or twice. Managers and other leaders in the organization sometimes are told not to say much.
That's right.
So what's your take on that situation?
Yeah, I think that's exactly what happens. I think there's basically three groups as I'm hearing your question that makes me think of. One is you have a certain level of management group, and it could be mid-level managers as well as high-level, where they're part of that inner circle of when the negotiations and when the deal is breaking down, and they're considered the premium talent, so they're on the end. And then you have the next set of managers who could be really good talent, etc., but not part of the in-group, so they don't know what's going on, and they're sort of excluded, but they have to put that positive hat on as a manager, as it should be expected from them managing people, in influencing mindset and culture. And then you have all the employees who aren't told, right? However, what typically happens is if you have a shining star employee, sometimes they're hand-picked to go have a special meeting with somebody and say, don't worry, you're safe, you're okay. And so some talent, even at the non-manager level, is isolated and protected. But
so what's the result of that? What does that do to the mindset of the rest of the staff, of the team?
I think it creates a lot of fear and uncertainty, which then means questions where they can't get answers. So like, should I look for a job? Am I going to be okay? Then it's also anxiety. I don't want to have to leave my job. I liked working here for a long time. Is it going to be so different? I'm not going to like it anymore. That's not what I want. So there's lots of feelings that bubble up that just create anxiety about not wanting to go through change and also wanting to preserve why you like the company you were at. And then you mix into that the fear of all the changes that won't work for you, and you're worried that that's what it's going to be like in your day-to-day. And so you're also fearful and stressed that you're going to go into something that's no longer there.
Yeah, it's tough, it's difficult. So we've set the table, and again, if you've been in this situation, and maybe it's in your past, and this brings up memories, but isn't exactly applicable to your current situation at work or your business. But if you're in it now, so what to do? What are some steps people can take? And I know you've recently worked with a couple of people where you were walking them through some suggestions, but we set the table, the tone, what happens in an organization, some of the things like communication happening on some levels but not all, and it creates a culture of some fear and discomfort. So what's one of the first things you recommend somebody does? Say somebody's just a regular frontline employee, and they're really not in a place to either get a lot of information or contribute a lot of information. What should they do?
They need to talk to somebody like you
Okay.
in career, because when they're in that situation, they don't feel grounded, right? They don't feel grounded. There's not that sense of security, that sense of knowing. It's the sense of feeling like there's things that are all unknown. Everything's now up in the air. Now, psychologically, that's the feeling when that may not be the case, but there's no context to validate why things are okay. So you don't have anything to tell you things are okay, and you don't have things to tell you it's not okay. So what do? You migrate towards everything's not okay as the negative mindset. So I think what people need the most is to get calibrated. If that's the case, coaching comes into play for career. Well, what's most important to you? If you can't control some of those outcomes, how do you now create your own path regardless and know where to go, whether it works for you here, post-acquisition, an integration of you with a new company, or not? You should still have your plan and still feel like you're going to win either way and be empowered to succeed whether you have to leave or stay.
It's important, and I'll chime in and add one thing on this. Thanks for opening that door too, because and forget the coaching for 1 second, but it's David's word of empowerment, and we can empower ourselves. Often one of the human behaviors is to default and wait to get empowered or feel empowered by others around us, both professionally and personally. You need to empower yourself. You need to David's point, make sure that you're still staying in control of your situation. And even though it's really hard, this is a really hard situation when these things happen.
It's very hard.
It's very hard, there's no question. But you need to remind yourself that, hey, I am still the owner of my path. And even though there's a lot of things going on out of my control, and there's a lot of people making decisions that I have no say on, I still have say in my path. And what can I create for myself next, to David's point. Do you think people at this stage of the game, should they focus on anything in particular? Should they focus on, okay, maybe this is a chance for me to say, maybe I'm meant to do something different. Maybe this is a chance for me to look at a different kind of industry. Maybe I should focus more on money. Should I be conservative and saving, or should I actually be saying, I'm gonna, since some things are out of my control, I'm just gonna make as much money as I can in the next 6 months and not work. What's an approach that you would recommend on those fronts?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think of two things. It's psyche related. I think the first thing is change means that it should be embraced. The potential for change creates opportunity, right? Now, opportunity may not be defined, so it's a scary thing when you don't know what that opportunity is. But the change presents the opportunity to go through the experience of defining what your opportunity is and what you could be doing to, I think, your point, right? Finding what it is that you want to do, or maybe you're finding stay the case and just do the same thing at a different company. But then the other thing too is to find out what are the triggers that hold you back with the fear. Is it because you're just more worried about your financial situation? And thinking you won't get the same type of compensation somewhere else. So automatically you're thinking, geez, every place else could never do that, right? Can't replace what I have. Or I'm really comfortable. I just thought I was going to be here for 20 years. It's 8 years in, and I'm just really disappointed that I can't enjoy the next 12 years of what my personal plan was to stay here. because I love the management, the founders, or whomever. So it's what are those things that you have to reconcile?
You know, and you just triggered another good thought, and I'm going to reemphasize and reinforce it here with the audience is when these situations arise, if it arises in your career, make sure you're looking at it, clear the lens, and because we get emotional in times like this.
Absolutely.
You know, and I love the way you said, you know, comfort, discomfort, and I know we alluded to that earlier, but it's going to cloud judgment. It's going to be like, this is happening to me. You said this.
Yep.
And we're not going to be. You can step back, look at your situation a little bit more stoically, try to cut down or subside as much emotion as you can and say, you know what, all right, what's my contribution here, what's my potential here, and what, you know, things connected to purpose, and then can I go somewhere else and do something with a little bit more impact, or, you know, just weigh your options appropriately. I don't think, you know, for most people, for some, the writing's on the wall.
Right, but
Most people just look at things, you know, through a clear lens and weigh the options.
Absolutely. I mean, the thing that I would wish people would spend more time putting front and center is before the acquisition took place, before they were feeling however these feelings are right, that are working against them, they were dealing from a position of saying, hey, my performance has gone well, I feel good about the job, I feel good about the company. So that they're living a day in and day out a world of confidence, right? Groundedness and confidence. But just because the situation changed, there's no reason for you to lose confidence in yourself or your capabilities or confidence in the ability for you to actually still thrive somewhere, whether it's the same company or elsewhere. But just because someone may decide as the acquirer that they no longer value you as the acquirer as everyone else had, don't let them take that away from you. Don't let them take away your value, your sense of value, your sense of confidence, your sense of that you can still succeed and thrive. There's no reason why that one person or that group should make you feel less of yourself.
Right.
Because it wasn't the case for how many years before that. So on that one day, all of a sudden, they take that away from you. Don't let them do it.
Yeah, and that's really a mindset we should have at all times. You know, be it a boss who's not really appreciative of what you bring to the table or your value. A company sometimes doesn't appreciate your value, but they don't define you. It's a hard concept. I struggled to grasp this when I was in corporate. That my job and the way that I was perceived in my job does not define me.
No,
It really doesn't. I mean, that's another topic. Maybe we should do a video on that one,
okay.
because I don't want to go down that rabbit hole. Okay, so let's, as we normally do, we've given some suggestions around how people should look at things and some suggestions about approach. Let's give one or two specific calls to action.
sure.
So if you're in this situation, or how about this? Even if you're not, how do you prepare? How about this? How do you prepare for the potentially inevitable day where there's some kind of an acquisition or purchase or merger of your employer? Or is there anything that people could be doing ahead of time? Do you think like it's just, hey, I'm constantly mindful of my career and the direction that I'm going in, or are there more proactive things people can do? Any suggestions?
Well, I think it's something that you and I have talked about before in the past, even in other videos, which is staying relevant, right? Staying relevant, but relevant, you know, is defined different ways. I mean, relevant just means if you love the industry specifically that you're in versus just, you know, if you're in technology, but you can be in any industry, you know, if you love that technology, be relevant with the technology role that you play, agnostic to industry, or if you love a particular industry, be relevant, make sure you always know what's going on in that industry, cutting edge, even on a look-ahead basis. You know, relevant with skills. Relevancy isn't always skill-based. Sometimes it's just knowledge-based, right? And then from there, being relevant too is also understanding through your tribe, your community, of your friends, your coworkers, people outside of work, understanding how the environment is in the work environment elsewhere outside your own company. That's how you stay relevant. What goes on outside your own company?
I like that. And now I think it's now. Listen, we have a lot of information, news, and whatnot at our fingertips. I think it's good to stay on top of some of what's going on and trends, and it's easy to get distracted or sucked in, you know, with our job to not pay attention to something's going on. So,
Oh, totally.
yeah.
What's your thing? What would you think is the one thing people can do to even during times of non-acquisition, but with that potential?
It's going to align. It's going to be more of in the spirit of what I do and teach and believe in myself, and that's the concept of continually staying very connected to who you are and where you want to go. I really feel that regardless of our situation, no matter how great things are going in our current role or how volatile they may be, or certainly when there's an acquisition or potential layoffs, we've got to constantly, consistently be mindful of our development, our growth, and what's bringing us joy and how we're bringing the most value to others. I think if all of us, yourself included, if you really focus on, am I continuing, and this ties into the relevancy, am I continuing to grow, am I getting better, and am I bringing more and more value, am I solving problems? If you're continuously focused on those things, as crazy as this may sound and feel at times, no matter how much the earth shakes around you, no matter how crazy things get, including when people are laid off, if you are connected to that and have clarity in it, you're going to be okay in the long run.
Yeah, and I think it's a great point, because it has a very direct effect on people today. It's very easy for me too to feel anxiety and stress when you're in these situations. But if people took a page out of the book from what you were just describing, that reduces anxiety, that reduces stress, and it's easier to go live through that experience with less stress and less anxiety. But it's harder when those levels are elevated. So one of the things is, how do you keep your anxiety and stress down, from the things that are agitating it, so that you can experience what you're talking about. I think that's the key.
Yeah, I mean, it's better to just, be prepared, stay on top of things, be truthful, face reality all the time, so that when something a little uncomfortable or maybe a lot uncomfortable happens, you're better prepared. You're not so caught off guard. Because then it really tastes crappy.
Yes.
The anxiety is through the roof. So this was good. This was a good topic. I'm glad we visited this. If you have any questions for David or I, let us know. Business coach, career coach, but of course a lot of intersection. David provides a lot of guidance on the career front as well. So reach out to us at any time. And remember, even if your current situation is smooth and cruising along, stay on top of your career. You own it. You're empowered. Thanks, David.
Thanks.